So here we are, a little bit about Lieutenant Colonel Girard, our narrator this afternoon, specific to the voting. We're looking now at some of Chris's medals and accommodations. Here is a chest full of medals, if you will. You'll see Office of Special Investigations, United States Air Force, Department of Air Force, undercover agent. He was part of Special Investigations. Here he is, State of Vermont. Vermont Distinguished Service Medal, Christopher Girard. Here he is, Special Agent, United States Air Force, award for Distinguished Service, a Commander's Award, a Surveillance Officer for Department Probation Parole, Lieutenant Colonel Chris Girard, Superior Officer and great friend, Special Agent, a wall of awards for his investigations. And it's so nice to have him with us this afternoon and giving his perspective on the investigation he's conducting into the activities at Country Club Estates. So with me today is Lieutenant Colonel Chris Girard, United States Air Force. He's the husband of Margaret Chug Girard over here on Cinda, part of Country Club Estates. He really thought it was profound how we were not given our time to present. He has some things that he wanted to be heard. Chris, you've noticed some trends over time in the neighborhood. What do you think some of the biggest challenges facing us right now are?
Well, right now, the biggest challenge, I think, is the uncertainty. The uncertainty of these new board members. Again, I've asked about 7 or 8 different people. We don't know who they are, where they came from, what they really plan to do to us. And on top of that...
You've asked for documents that you haven't received, is that correct?
That's correct.
And I provided them for you,
yes.
or C-Blog has provided them for you?
Yes. And it's the uncertainty and unknowing of what they're going to do and when they're going to do it. On top of that, I think, I speak for myself now, but I think I can probably speak for some of the other people that they covered from.
Sweeping back to Tuesday night's meeting.
Yeah.
Was there a lot of their side, our side, and there was no seeming middle? Did you agree?
Yes, I saw a lot of animosity between the two sides. I did hear some very cogent, very responsible, very intelligent comments from some people on both sides.
Did you see or have evidence that you believe was evidence of vote proxy manipulation, and in terms of taking proxy votes and then illegally handling sealed ballots before they were delivered?
Yes, they were opened and looked at, and one member admitted to proxy vote fraud or manipulation by helping somebody change their proxy vote. And we also heard from the chairman of the board that she was involved in some...
And you pointed out that Robert's Rules of Order eliminates the validity of proxy votes.
Yes.
That was very interesting. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, when you have a nonprofit organization, proxy votes are illegal, and we can't have that. We need to have somebody collecting those sealed proxy ballots and counting them in a fair, unbiased manner.
But then you can't use Robert's Rules of Order and still have proxy votes.
No, you can't.
Unless it's specified in the bylaws, which in this case it's not.
No, it's not. And they're exclusionary. If you have proxy votes and Robert's Rules of Order, they're exclusionary.
Tell us about your review of the financial statements that you don't have in your hand.
The financial statements are a big worry, not only to myself and my wife, but to other people, I think, in the neighborhood. We don't know how much money they have in their new bylaws.
What's being spent?
What's being spent and on what. And in the new bylaws, there's a new paragraph, which I have questioned several times, nobody will give me an answer, that the board can now give themselves salaries. It doesn't say how much, it doesn't say who's paying for it, but for all we know, it could be $100,000 a year apiece on the board, according to the bylaws. We can give ourselves what we think is a reasonable salary. The other problem I had in that thing talking about finances was there is a paragraph that talks about insurance. Now, I fully understand the need for liability insurance, property insurance, and so forth that the board used to have. But they have a new paragraph now that says they can add insurance that they deem necessary. That's another blank check. What happens if they deem necessary their own personal life insurance or their own personal car insurance or something like that? Then we, the members, pay for that also.
Does your inner self say that the finances, that you could trust, are you going to trust, do you trust how the finances are being managed now, or would you like to have higher degree of visibility?
Oh, we need much more visibility. There
should be public.
There's no transparency right now with the board, and there's a great deal of mistrust, not only on my part, but other people I've talked to, about the board. We don't know what they're doing and when they're going to do it to us.
What did you think when the errants raised their hand and said, Attorney Ward, you represented us in our closing and you ripped the form up? What was your thought at that moment?
I thought that he was completely blowing that off, in that I think he recognized both of those. Those are very...
Because he admitted, he said,
I don't even know you. These are two very
and they're his clients.
Yeah, they're two distinguished looking men. They are people that you could pick out of a crowd. So you would remember those two gentlemen.
What went through your mind when that happened? Were you surprised?
No, I wasn't surprised at all. First of all, he's a lawyer. Second of all, he's a politician now because he's working for the board. And, you know, when their lips move, they lie.
In the meeting, you pointed out that he said we on the board. I did not know he had been appointed to the board. Did you?
And no, and I'm glad somebody called him out on that, because he said, we said, are you a member of the board? Well, no. Then why do you keep saying we? And then he backed off on that one.
And so he was given an hour to speak about this proposal that ultimately was rejected. What did you think about the opposing side not having any option, any opportunity to speak to it?
This was all, again, there's no transparency with the board. This was a one-sided meeting, in that the board and the board's proxy, lawyer Ward, got to do all the talking.
I'm going to quote you here. You did say something about a snow job or a railroad job.
Yeah, it was. It was. We got pushed over the cliff on that meeting because we didn't get a chance to present what we needed to present. On top of that, right when these new bylaws, proposed bylaws, were published, as you know, I wrote a 5-page memo, put it in everybody's mailbox, and I had specific questions.
You asked 5 pages of questions that you did not receive a single answer on.
And I had some comments, some generic comments and specific comments, as well as questions. And not one person from the board or from this community, except you and I, have discussed this paper that I wrote.
And that's a travesty, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely.
That your questions went unanswered.
Yes.
Do you feel as though the board has honored their fiduciary responsibilities to their constituents?
Absolutely not. No.
And what would you like to see from them in the future? More transparency, you said earlier?
Whoever we get on the board, again, I've asked almost 7 or 8 people where these people came from and who they are. I don't know. I never got notified about an election or anything else. I don't know where they came out of nowhere.
So you feel as though, A, you're not getting the right notification about what's happening in the community.
Right. There's no transparency.
There's no website that posts information.
Right.
There's no mailings that go out announcing things.
Right.
That there are giant discrepancies. In the meeting, many things were pointed out in the minutes. In fact, the minutes were not accepted as read because there were glaring discrepancies. That votes were improperly recorded, they said that people were there that weren't there.
Right.
What did you think about that when they were listing people that were not even at the meeting?
I thought some of those things that went on were close to being illegal, if not outright. And
it made you feel unsafe, and it made Margaret feel unsafe.
It made me feel very unsecure in this neighborhood because, again, we don't know what's going to happen to us, to our property, our homes.
And you made reference that you're going to be talking to private legal counsel about pursuing this.
Yes.
And I know that you've taken several steps towards that.
Yes.
I'm hoping that you'll go with us to the Attorney General's office and support us down there.
I can do that. And I'm also looking at individual counsel.
Thank you very much, Lieutenant Colonel Chris Girard.
Thank you
for being with us today.
Thank you.